was real excited about what. Well, here we are. It's January 20th on a Monday, and Sean and David the Indian are back. So
Oh, baby.
get ready. Here we go.
Yeah, you were just saying today's the inauguration of President Trump.
That's really we right before we started recording, we just got right into it, and here we are, and it's the 20th of January. It's really an epic day. No matter what, there's change that's happening, and so it's like riding a wave. We talk about wave and particle. Everything is wave particle, but right in the middle is where it transitions from nothing to some physical density. And so that's where we want to focus our attention. And plasma is right there. That's what it is. It's plasma. We've talked about these subjects, but today is very cold apparently in Washington and that whole area where you are. It's 20 degrees, I guess,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I don't know if there's snow, but it's definitely, it's probably too cold. Sometimes it happens. It gets too cold to even snow. Can you imagine, like in Alaska or in Antarctica or something? It's like, come on, this is pathetic.
See.
That's why, Sean, we've been really the kind of the push. I guess it's a push and a shove and a pull and everything along with it. Is the next milestone is coming up on the 21st of February, so that's only a month away. And so that pushes the hibernation festival. So when we're mentioning these really extreme cold conditions, it's pretty natural for us just to cuddle up on the couch and watch Netflix and what pop some
Yeah.
popcorn, make some whatever. You know, you're not going to be
Which
doing. Yeah, go
you
ahead.
need to do me a favor and send me over all the information because I think the next step for that event is to get a flyer put together. So I could start working maybe, or if you have a flyer, we could start posting it on the intro and start getting it out on social media.
Actually, Sean, thank you for offering any action, which is good action. So we have a whole team of like volunteers that have ability to do things like make flyers, not just one. The idea is to really canvas and do guerrilla marketing, like we talked about. This exercise, having a major festival, like a globalized, attraction, a week long event, like pre Carnival, Rio, Sao Paulo, and with ayahuasca, plant everything's coming at you. It's an artificial and a natural intelligence that we are combining during this annual festival, and this is the first one. So, it's going to be a testimony on how quickly, when people come together, how we can actually make change if we don't have the fear. Really, the fear paralyzes us. And then once we think that we're giving something away, we're not going to do it. Whatever the benefit is, if you feel like it's a giveaway, it's not a takeaway. That's what everyone wants to know. What's in it for them? So Hibernation Festival, it's online and it's like webinar stuff, and it's also physical. But the thing is, it's really me is the one that's organizing it all. That includes air transport, but through like I'm not even using AI. I'm actually just beginning the process, but we're gonna evolve the next 4 weeks. I've got so many people, Sean. It's like I'm I am passing along like a hot potato every time I talk with somebody. These people are hot. That's a good hot. I mean, that means that hot means, it's like chickens giving birth. The female chicken sits on the eggs for what, 3 weeks or something. It's not 9 months or anything, but still 3 weeks, and you get like eight things underneath your butt. I mean, it's a long sleep, and that's how they do it. They go into like a hibernation, and they don't have to eat that much, and really they're just applying that heat to the eggs to germinate it, give birth. It's amazing, like for what I'm not like a farmer guy. I grew up on an island. I grew around that stuff, but I was always the kind of the youngster that people just thought was way ahead of their time. And I was always told, you got 50 years, slow down. Your ideas are just like, so revolutionary. The world's not ready for you, boy. Get back in your place. And it didn't happen. Thank God, because that's what makes me persevere. Well, us, not just me, but it's all our stories of perseverance, resilience, and overcoming rejection. That's where we're at. So this festival coming up is very interesting. I mean, just when you start mentioning, doing like a flyer, we are so beyond that. I'm talking with two like professional film companies. So they want to film that 8 days and 7 nights and all the activities. And if you take 24/7, like what we're doing is broadcasting from now until the 21st, we're going to accumulate so many hours. Right now, we're doing like a 1 hour day. But even for me with my podcast, and I do have a playlist back in September of last year, 2024. I did every day in September. It was like a round robin marathon, 4 hours. I think it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So every day I was on. And so in some time it was live and it was broadcasted in multiple channels. Sometimes I had people joining, but a lot of the times it was me. And after talking to yourself for a while, as you know, you kind of get bored. It is like, it might be time to play some of that music or like get Soli involved at that point. If we have programming and we got like the dead of silence, it's good to be there. But when you're broadcasting a signal, you want to keep that signal consistent. And so people need to know it's kind of like a dopamine fix or whatever. That's the way I see this World Impact News Network, the WIN network being 24/7. And it's like when you really need to reach out, and it is like a hotline in the sense that if it is breaking news and some discovery or whatever, hopefully not like war or anything like that, obviously, not some outbreak of like another virus, we don't want to. I mean, these might be realities. We want the other 99 realities, not just that one view, you know. And that's what makes what we're doing. That's what makes this festival, the Hibernation Festival, very special. And just to let everybody know, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have confirmed with Soli that she's going to go ahead and come in from Lithuania. And like I'm not going to kind of give away any of the things, but since we've been sharing, that's the way this works. It's like, it is work. We have to apply thought and reasoning. Like you, Sean, I bombarded you with stuff, bro. I know that there's probably no way that you've actually, seen all of that stuff, but it's not meant for you to get into that. It's just a taste. All you need is just a taste. And if it tastes good, then later you know where it is. Just like an ant or any animal that's going to or a dog, they take bones after they're full of their stomach. They can't eat anymore usually. Our dog at least, it will dig and start burying the bones all over the island, like for later. So animal behavior, hibernation, is really kind of what the real power is, because we are animals. We do have we are everything. We are one. So if you are a drop in the ocean, you are an ocean in the drop, and it goes back and forth. If you're one fractal of the whole, you are the whole. You can expand that. It's like a wormhole. You go into that. Your fractal, point zero zero absolute is how it's your fractal. It's everyone's. So that's how we connect. We go into that like wormhole, but that wormhole it's a black hole. So it all comes together, and that's the excitement. I don't know if you have anything that you want to go ahead and share. Let me ask you a question, and also for the audience, because now this is, I think, episode 6. And when we first contacted each other, I did share my Facebook, and this is related to a public press release that I did in a pinned post. So it's the first actual posting on my Facebook. Did you read that, Sean?
Not.
Okay.
When I get Facebook, I got to move it to my computer because I'm not logged in. I've had some issues with Facebook. I've lost some accounts, and I've got an account now that's on my computer, but I'm not able to set it up on my phone. So if I'm looking at anything on my phone and I don't have an active account, it doesn't really let me get access to look at it. But I can move the link over off of WhatsApp onto my computer. I just haven't had a chance to do that.
Great. Yeah. And some of this technical stuff, by the way, it's not just you and me. This is going to be a cooperative or it's not going to happen because, our time is going to get more and more, I don't want to say demanded, valuable, whatever, but precious. Just like, okay. So
We have
at some
we have
point,
some.
we're going to need to go ahead. Go ahead,
I'm
Sean.
sorry. We have some guys from the UK joining us Wednesday, I believe, with Zenco that you sent over.
Yeah, that's right with Daniel and Michael. Actually,
Yes.
I know them. They have an organization it's called Zen Credits. They get involved with things like carbon banking and also land, very creative finance, where these lands are not held in ownership; they're in commons, and that's what I promote with James, for example, with the guy in Earth Trust. When he was talking just yesterday on yesterday's podcast, and we're going to be talking again with, I'm sure, with James and Lucas
Yes.
and Emily and Michael. They're four legs to the table for their organization. They're going to come on, and in 1 hour, if they're going to, like I said, if they're going to deliver their three wishes of like what they've been for 3 years, it's not for me. 3 years is like it's like sucking the nipple, bro. That's not like I mean, we're talking about professional peoples like Dan Winter, you, me, and others our age, like baby boomers, like at the last leg of baby boomers in 1964 and whatever, or 60s, early 60s, like my wife, a little bit older, but in the same genre of, the realities. I mean, Sean, it's remarkable. We go back in our history and we started like with nothing. I mean, we had stuff and there were farming, agriculture and the war and things like that, but we didn't have radio, is what I'm saying. We didn't have the ability to communicate like we are. And this World Impact News, the WIN network, is not free because it takes our time, but the technology is really it's open source and it's anonymous and it's non you can't track it. There's no cyber attack threat. Although we can have like teams and we can play games and we can try to like pop the bubble, but the bubble ain't poppable. You know, after 27 years, that's what it comes down to. A scientist, their obligation, or even an entrepreneur, is try to pop the bubble before like a venture capitalist group or somebody like Dave Meltzer pops your bubble. Like, like on his show, the 5 minute pitch with Bloomberg Financial, he lets you give 5 minutes. But if you sound like you have not done your homework, and I mean, he treats that like perfect for his work because that's the example he's setting. So the next person comes on, don't make those type of errors. You got to
Yeah.
spend a little bit of time, and you got to have the knowledge of what 5 minutes is. And like
Hmm.
even us, you and I both, Sean, admitted when we get rolling, forget the 5 minutes, bro.
Yeah.
And you're in sales and I'm in sales. So if you can get the door open, that's when you stick your foot in between the threshold and the door. And when they're closing it on your foot, it does hurt. You silently go, ouch. Then you pry the door open and you get your ass inside. And once you're inside sitting at the table and the wife comes over and you start sharing afternoon tea, like in the UK or something, high tea, dude, you're closing every one of those. There's no way because we're not preachers or anything. We're deliverers. Just like Sol Lee said, I'm a channeler. That's what she told me when I talked to her privately. It wasn't recorded, but I'm sure some of the stuff that we talked about is going to come out. She's a channeler, and it's overwhelming for her sometimes too because she's so accurate. And sometimes that accuracy scares the hell out of people. You have to prepare somebody. Like she said, it doesn't happen instantaneously, but and I didn't object to that comment. But that's really, Sean, what the ego says to us, that it is not instantaneous and that your perfect health is something, it's a regimen. It's some type of change in habit and change environment, change in nutrition, change in you know, um, physical fitness and things like that, and things, continuing educate, whatever. It's a matter of change. But now we know that these are direct pulses to your pineal gland, and once you activate that, it clears up that crystalline resonance, the vibration that Sol Lee's going to talk about when she's singing that angelic tone. it's equal for us all. I mean, we are coming from that point zero zero absolute space. That's what she does. She's able to hold that space, and that's what healers do. They just hold they hold that area around the point zero zero absolute, because like we talked, it's the gateless gate. So you don't hold the gateless gate. There's nothing to hold, but you hold that space like right there. So when people can pass through it, it's kind of an interesting word, the passing, because there's and I'll let you chime in here, Sean. I know that I go off, but
Good, man.
mentioning
I'm
the
having a good time.
hibernation, yeah, the hibernation festival, and mentioning these two film companies. One of them is a gentleman, Robert Lyon. He lives in Coral Gables, in around Coconut Grove in Florida, in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, that whole area. He's very well talented. But related to this event, we're talking with Robert Lyons about coming in, and there are costs. I mean, he's professional. He makes like motion pictures for the Academy and these awards, and like film and cinema and stuff. So it's not like I'm not saying schmuck or some. There's no schmucks in art, anyways.
No, but I know what you're saying, man. These guys are the real deal. They come in, they're super professional. They know their craft very well. They've got good equipment. They already have a foundational layout of what they're going to need, what they're going to want. Everybody's getting mic'd up. I mean, like, yeah, and that's really a blessing. I mean, that's really a blessing because, you know, in addition to launching this first one, we're going to document it so that the entire planet and universe will have access to everything that occurred and already start ramping up for the next one. But that documentation and that professionalism of a camera crew and that type of a person, that is a real blessing right there.
It is a blessing, and there are risks, because I've been developing now like 3 years a relationship with Robert, kind of like you and I. I mean, we didn't do a podcast together, but he did have it was called Island Hoppers. So he had a podcast where he went throughout the Caribbean, and he would document like these tourism type of films, but bring in a little bit more substance to it to make it really like an infomercial, like a documentary, mostly focused on surfing and on the ocean. But to convince Robert even to consider even coming to the festival is like really a privilege. He just finished a movie. It's called Passing but Present, Past but Present, past like passed on but present. And his whole purpose is to work with mediums and channelers and people that had near death or after death experiences. So it's called Past but Present, which means that we never leave the present. The point zero zero absolute, the moment of now, is eternal. And so in your life, the point zero zero is what connects you through the doorway of this moment into the past and the future, whichever direction you want to go in. There's really no need to go in the past. It is what it is. And it made us who we are. So like in my case, people say, oh, you could change your past. Can you change your past is like a question. And I say absolutely, you could do really anything that you want to do, that you have the free will. But keep in mind, if you change one, it's a cause and effect. So you don't know. So where you are today, if you are totally like miserable with yourself, I can understand you're gonna want to go and change some of the past. But if you're like Sean and I and Soli and other people that are star seeds, and really are not trying to prove anything, just try to express the intelligence that we have and the creativity and communication and what have you, then you're around. We can help each other. In that example, Sean, is how other people ascend. So like with Soli, that's how she works. She resonates with and mirrors, you know, tries to be patient, work on a one-on-one, or even she likes groups. And so when somebody wants to be healed, all you're doing is giving them that security and that freedom to let them express themselves, because they're not going to hurt you. It's like you could say the most horrible crap that ever happened to you, and it's not going to like upset God. Ultimately, God's intelligence is what we're talking about. You can't unconditional love, no matter what you say, it's that's where wisdom comes in because we don't want to be like, oh my God, I pity this guy or woman so much. Oh my God, they're suffering so much. You don't want to do that. We want to rise that up to, the compassion, which starts with pity, and then it goes to sympathy, then it goes to empathy, and then it rests at compassion. See, there's another word like intelligence. I asked you in one of the episode, what is intelligence? And we said it's two parts. It's active and silent. Active is 1%, silent is 99. And that's the same principle. These are very simple, questions that we've been distracted from even asking. And once you ask it once, the answer comes back. It's like you move on. You just like accept it. At some point you don't have any more questions. I mean, who are we? What is our purpose? And all of the things about, our potential, we already know, you know. And if it's not really accurate, then let's come together and define what that accuracy is. But right now, with people so lost and confused and really asking for solutions and looking to self-help, more than ever, people, even me, the way that I got educated was going to Barnes and Noble bookstore and getting a cup of coffee and staying like a library. Like a library hopper. I love libraries. I always have. I grew up in poverty, so my comfort was a book or something of knowledge, because I was always told as like 2 years, 3 years old, get education, David, get education. Put all your chips on the table in education. And that's ultimately why, like as an American right now on an island off the coast of Brazil, talking about like freedom cells and micronations and sovereign places and governance and land hold and all of the things we're talking in energy and healthcare and governance and how we actually work in community. It's amazing for me. And that's what I want. For me, the podcast, one of the hours will be the Power of Islands podcast, which I'm going to continue kind of that platform. I'm going to be a host, David the Indian. And then what we'll do is other hours where we can maybe do 1 hour where we tag team each other and say, David, did you see yesterday? This is the new news coming from Czechoslovakia or something, wherever.
Yeah.
And then we can talk, and then we can tie in other experts like instantly into that conversation, like the bat phone. When people get a call from the blue grapevine, that's what we call it, the blue grapevine. And when they get that call from the blue grapevine, that's a signal. Pick that bitch up. You gotta find out what the hell is going on with that. It's like, and so we're not trying to waste time. We're trying to really enjoy time, and that's what it's about. So here we are. We're on a half an hour into this for sixth or seventh episode. So inauguration. Wow. I don't know.
Inauguration, it's really an epic milestone because, David, there's a lot of subjects that, this kind of translates into. And, I'm kind of all over the place. And, I get stamped on the forehead with crazy, boom. But, the thing that's significant right now about Mr. Trump, President Trump, is that, from what I've been told and what I've gathered from various sources, and I don't claim to know this firsthand, but he is tied into this intergalactic federation. And we're moving into the disclosure part of our history here and acknowledging off planet civilizations, off planet intelligence, off planet beings, what have you, that have actually been here for quite some time, but also were off planet. And so, the release of new technologies, I mean, theoretically, this is going to be where the medbed technology gets released to the public. This is going to be where the disclosure stuff starts going on into full speed. And I don't know where it's going. I don't claim to, but I will say that this could be a real pivot point right now in the acceleration of a lot of things when it comes to technologies and the ability to do a lot of good, helping a lot of these people, without having, issues with censorship and other things that, have been fairly prevalent for a lot of people over the last 4 or 5 years, especially.
Yeah, well, the issue with communications has been very long time that in Babylonia, even when we started using words in general, we knew it was complicating things. It wasn't simplifying. There was no, we already even talked about AOM and AOM. And the fact is, and I didn't come to a conclusion, it's pretty interesting. Maybe somebody that will remember listening to this, yourself even, Sean, the words AOM are the primordial sounds. And what's important is that these are the only three sounds that we can make without a tongue. That is what the key is, because when we came here, like extraterrestrial, like an evolved being, we didn't have a tongue and we didn't have teeth. We didn't eat meat. We didn't need to eat meat. Okay. We didn't need to eat anything. And so the evolution that we actually went through was like, a product of like big business and Walmart and stuff. I mean, all we've been doing is evolving to consume like animals and just be
Yeah.
like have like an unsatisfied appetite, especially for human beings, which is crazy as hell. This topic that in this day and age that we actually still have people that eat other humans and enjoy it. I mean, it's actually like considered delicacy. And so I don't want to get like gross out people and stuff. But, for me, there's an interesting meeting I have coming up on March 1st with a gentleman. His name is Victor Hugo, like Victor Hugo, the French back in the day, like the revolutionary type. But he's obviously not that big, but he carries that kind of you know, persona in the way that he's an expressive guy. He's a journalist. He's also a filmmaker, and he has an organization called the Modern Art Music Movement, or MAM, MAMM. And so, why is that important? It's, February 1st is coming up, and I in this event is on the 21st. So there's only like now 3 weeks left. I mean, every time we keep moving forward in that timeline, the event is coming closer and closer. And so for people like yourself, Sean, and others that do these planning of these events, like I said, this is normally like a 1 year like cycle. You don't just dive into it off the cliff and say, okay, we're doing this international, like World Fair Summit on AI and these health modalities and all this, like all at once. It's like this like perfect storm. Call it what you want. But it's not a storm meant to like hurt other people, but it does make a reset. That's what we're talking. There is a vibration. What I try to help people understand is we are like light bulbs. We talked about the unity bubble. When our fields are flowing and we circulate, we are glowing orbs. That's all you can see is white. You don't have skin, you don't have color of skin and like your shirt and any tones with color. It's all white, biophotonic white. And so, that's these are the simple things that now we realize, and we can show you go to white. I mean, you're not going to stay in that biophotonic state. You don't need to. All you need to do is blink your eye, like a Xerox machine or something. When it takes that copy, bro. I mean, like I said, you're an age, Sean. We came through. We didn't have phones. We had switchboards. We had to clear our checks when we had a checking account. We had the balance account. Wow, we had to do it all. We didn't have television. We didn't have color and like the all of these whatever these technologies for even more clarity and more color and more animation and the cinematography and all of that. We didn't have that, but now we do, and I don't see it actually getting any better. That's why this is exciting. This event coming up, this festival, is an actual evolution that people are not gonna, they can't kind of ignore. It's at one point you in over 8 days and 7 nights you're gonna find that entanglement. You're gonna find that point zero zero absolute. if you're patient. And once you do, once you're in, then you illuminate. That's when you become a light body, like what Soli teaches. Her whole thing is about you becoming enlightened. You know, I mean, we all have that ability. It doesn't mean like we're out there religiously, like proclaiming anything, but we are light. We're pure. We're not toxic. People want to be with us because we have that compassion like right away. We don't reserve anything just for our family or, our family is any person, place, or thing. Like I said, it's we is the family. You don't, if you ignore one person, like James said, when James was on from Guy and Earth Trust, and I hope, like we said, we're going to try to get these other people back on the show, like a full length show. But he mentioned it himself, the importance of what we're talking about, the unity, the
Mhm.
unifying field. And anyways, I'm rambling a little bit. Go ahead if you want to chime in.
No, man, you're
Once again,
good.
once again, maybe Sean, do you have people helping you? Like Riley was a person that when our first call, Riley was in the background, but do you have like in staff, you have employees?
I have a lot of independent contractor friends of mine, guys that I've worked with in the industry that come in and do very segmented projects. So some is medical equipment service and repair, some is medical equipment projects of pickup and delivery. So there's people that we interface with in the space here with me and Riley. We are basically running this ship on our own, and it's an exciting task. And but we're in the stage right now where we're really looking to try to grow the business out. But currently, it's just me and her, pretty much running the organization here on a day-to-day basis. And we're in a 8,000 square foot facility, so there's a portion of what we do that's medical equipment sales. So there's a lot of medical equipment in here, but we've allocated probably at least half of the space to the health and wellness and all the other technologies, which, crystals or just everything, right? Anything that is, and it's a museum. You've said that many times, and that's exactly what it is, because you can't appreciate what you have now if you don't look back at those that have all made a contribution along the way. And the funny thing is that a lot of the technology 100 years ago was very powerful. Like everybody's thinking, I don't get into this very often, but everybody's saying, oh, I need a med bed, I need a med bed. But really, it's just a lack of understanding of knowing that you're unable to um, just get access to information that's available that's out there. So, that's really the goal for me is to educate people, let them know what's available, what's out there, and give out the history. Like Rife, right? You talked and mentioned Rife. Very few people know who Royal Raymond Rife was, and this was a guy who was light years ahead of his time. He had worked for Zeiss, which is a company that produces microscopes. They still to this day do. We sell those they go into hospitals for really high-end surgeries where you have to be really, really down and very precise. But he put together a microscope in the 20s that had over 6,000 working parts, that had a 60,000 time magnification, and it was so advanced that they didn't really even replicate anything that could do that up until about 10 years ago. And Rife was looking at living organisms and living cells under a microscope, and he was able to run frequency sets through those and figure out what was an optimal frequency and what was a frequency that would eliminate the cell. And so this was work that everybody then took and worked and splintered off from. That's just one center that splintered off hundreds of different scientists. And a lot of the technology now, in Tesla, Rife and Lakovsky, and all these guys were all like brilliant people, and a lot of them, paid a really high price. And one of the things I feel is always important is to give recognition and credit to those who did, and get those names back up in front of people and say, look and learn about these people, because your health and wellness now is partially, they've contributed to that in some way, shape, or form. And with Rife, they ran him into the ground. A lot of guys that worked with him were threatened or eliminated, and they just burned his stuff and just, they basically ran him into obscurity, which is not an uncommon, ending for a lot of these people who really, in their heart of hearts, wanted to do nothing but good. So, when people come here and they see a lot of the technology, there's a lot of cutting edge technology. Dan Winter is, we've talked about Dan, but Dan's on the spectrum of taking all these notes, all these technologies, and pushing them forward and taking the notes of these great people. I think we talked a little bit about Antoine Prairie. I know I did that with James Rink, but Anton Prairie back in the 60s, working with the French government, dropping plasma tubes the size of torpedoes on cranes through a ceiling, so he could do his research. And, all these people have contributed. And now, with like the work of Dan Winter, we're using technology that really is true medbed type technology. I mean, we don't need, the free government medbed thing, and that's coming. And with Trump coming into office, that will be accelerated. But for those people out there that are kind of waiting around and sitting on their hands thinking they've got to wait for that, they really do not. They just have to, just get educated, find out some of the technology. You've brought up Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, and she also has created some brilliant technology, a little different, but also very, very powerful, and also with a list of thousands of testimonials. And that technology is sort of multi-dimensional because it not only puts your body in this field of scalar energy, which is like a bath for the cells and recharging the body, but also putting out a field uh, out and around that's helping knock out a lot of the EMF and creating sort of almost a bubble around her that encompasses that. And her story, which is phenomenal, which is a lot of the stories, but with Dr. Michael, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, I've met with her. I spent a day with her down in Cape Canaveral at Mel's place, um, Staying Alive, a medbed type technology center in Cape Canaveral. And she's with two or three kids, and she's getting this download saying, you need to create this technology. I think it was Pleiadian, and she's sitting there going, I'm a single mom trying to just make my bills and pay my bills. And she's getting these data drops, and she's like, how in God's name am I going to do this? And so you get these stories of these people that are given these tasks, and they not only accomplish them, but they accomplish them in grand form. And Dr. Michael, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, the first people that were coming to her were very high-end military people. One of the generals, there was a military general who was really at the doorstep of, transition. And he was one of the first people. And this was before she even had a center. She was doing this all out of her house, invited him in. These high-level military people knew what she was doing, and her background with their family and everything else is deep embedded in government programs and high-end, like highly secretive programs. And so, I feel like the stories and being the messenger and letting people know that there's a lot of things available right now for health and wellness, and telling these stories and making my place a museum for those to come visit. I'm not sure, David, if you're familiar with James Rink.
I the name kind of rings a bell, but no, Rink, James Rink.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so he'll be here tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, and he was in some of these sort of black op programs where the real actual med beds were. They have a 20 and back program where they age regress you back, and there's a whole process that's done with. And he's going to spend a few days here with us. But we're getting a lot of people now that are starting to kind of join our movement and help give out information about some of these technologies, and also acknowledging that a lot of the technologies that we've got right now are actually quite powerful and very useful for a wide spectrum of health and wellness and maintaining health and wellness, right? It's not about letting the third dimensional body fall into a black hole. It's about maintaining health and wellness and using technology to stay healthy. And of course, if there is a situation where that's gone awry and we need to get back into homeostasis, having very powerful technologies available. So, for me to be able to learn about these things and present them and really just be a communication person, is really a blessing and a gift.
And a very well received gift on this part, and anyone listening in this audience. Sean, it's really a pleasure having these discussions with you. And we go off on different tangents, and I know that might be a little bit confusing for people, but if there is a subject that we don't really get closure on, that's the whole idea. We can create another like 1 hour specifically on whatever it is, like cryogenics or something. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So a lot of things are happening which we just allow, and we're going to flow. So if you don't have like in-house abilities, what we're trying to do is reach people listening to this broadcast that want to be involved, and also with this festival, try to make it as successful for the first year. I mean, we have the nice part is there's no cost, and we're not really asking for people to invest. It's a matter of, we have a message, we have a location, it's wonderful, it makes sense, people really are intrigued, and they want, the ones that I know, they want this. They're not going to stop it, whether they do it from their home office or where they actually travel here, and whether it's this year or maybe next year, but it's something that they can actually plan out. So if some people can't do it physically for this first annual, but this first year is really it's going to be a miracle. It's going to be a miracle, quite honestly, Sean. But that's where we're going. In extreme circumstances, there's this extreme reaction, I guess. But we don't have to go all the way to the other side. Like I said, we can come rest in the center. Just just take solace in the .00 absolute. We don't have to like switch it all over. It's not like a competition or anything like that. But we need a change. We don't need alternatives. You're mentioning these technologies, and I had talked about a device. We haven't really gotten into it a lot, but you and I, about the B3 scanner, which is the brain body biofield 20-second enlightenment scanner. And this is really intriguing. And Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, her technology is very well embedded in this B3 scanner, as well as about 5 or 6 or maybe even more now. More and more technologies are coming into the view, and how we can actually integrate and actually bring even B3 to the next level, of evolution. It's never like a finished product, but all indications are right now the healing that people are looking for is instantaneous. So when we listen to other people talking about there's a process, and it does take time and patience and all of this, that is one path. You can go down and you can do things like yoga and Reiki and cranial sacral therapy and all these other kind of light hand healing modalities without even using equipment, or you can even use the equipment. Depends on yourself. But the real reality that we found is that it is instantaneous. And like these med beds, you don't have to have one in your house. They get you to that point of healing. You can do it maybe one time, or you don't have to be like prisoner to the med bed, or any type of limitation for your energy to and conscious awareness to flow. Any device is really kind of a limit. So there's a Dr. Johann Boswinkel that I talk about with biophotonic healing. And I just want to mention real briefly his work. He's in the Netherlands, and he does this biophotonic light. It's like a Xerox machine. And the B3 scanner actually uses this biophotonic scanner that he devised and he patented it. And he knows how it works. And basically, Johann Boswinkel discovered clinically that really our issue is an issue called whiplash. Have you ever heard, Sean, whiplash? A condition called whiplash?
Yeah, whiplash. Yeah. That's very common in car accidents.
Right. But Dr. Johann Boswinkel says that it's actually common in all of our lives, even in the process of being born, like going down the birth canal and coming out. If you're using forceps or using like a C-section or whatever, these are impacts that are not really natural. So what happens is we are like very high sensitive light bulbs. In the way electricity works, we know positive and negative comes together, and that's what generates that energy is with the combination of positive and negative. You can't have energy without both. You need the polarity. So basically, Dr. Johann Boswinkel has proven that our condition is like a light bulb, but we're not broken. We are shocked. In some cases, children go through like shaken syndrome. A parent loses patience or whatever, shakes the child. That's very aggressive. Or like you said, a car accident, or like a football player. Like I was a running back, so my job was to score a touchdown, and the other 11 guys was to destroy me, and cremate me, you know.
Actually,
And so I haven't been totally unconscious, but I've come to the doorway of unconsciousness on multiple occasions in my life. Let's put it that way. So, when I think about Dr. Johansson's hypothesis that we are like shocked, and that we need to come back to that purity of the pure connection with no interruption and no the discrimination, conflict, and competition and anything, no doubt. And so that's his device that's included in the B3 scanner. What it does is it brings us back to that 0.00 absolute and that understanding on a cellular basis that we're perfect. And so in 20 seconds, and even Dr. Sandra Jerose Michael talks about this. She had like with the School of Oxford school or whatever in London, one of the podcasts I listened to, she came out and said these hailing devices, including the EE system, can actually be done in 20 seconds. I didn't say the 20 seconds. You can ask Sandra. We can have Sandra on the show. Absolutely. It would be a great show. And Dan
it'd be an
Winter. And,
amazing show.
it'd be awesome. It's not meant to like pop Sandra Rose Michael's balloon, but, if these EE systems are not really optimizing the conditions that we know, then let's integrate. I'm not saying everything has to be the B3 scanner, that it's going to be like a whitewash or like a brainwashing, because that's the threat really right now, Sean. When we come to simplicity, some people are going to call it communism. you know, they're going to be like, how did these people monopolize something like, a B3 scanner, or operated batteryless operated drones, you know, or whatever energy, like we're talking about, how can like a group like you and me, come together, and not only us, but hopefully we're going to have 1 billion people. That's the goal. Is we talked about it's 1.5 billion. When we hit that, then everyone's jumping for joy. Otherwise, right now, even if we reach some of the targets that these other podcasts, and by the way, I'm tending to go to podcasts that exist so that they can kind of take 1 hour and they can be on a regular schedule, like Jesse Howe, who, by the way, with Dan Winter, I think Dan was on Jesse Howe, the Missing Link podcast, I think 3 or 4 times, just like myself. So Jesse, I think, has 1,000 interviews right now. And so to get him on a 1 hour on a regular basis, he's in Canada. So he's, I think, 2 hours difference or whatever, Eastern Standard Time in Toronto. Um, Anyways, that's the idea right now, is to include even James with the guy in the Earth Trust. They had a podcast, they had a following. A lot of these podcasts have been canceled by like Jesse Howe, for example. I think YouTube canceled him like 7 or 8 times now. And that's a lot of work for people like you, Sean, that know what it takes to get like 100,000 followers. and then they cancel everything, and you don't have that stuff backed up. You're relying on that information. So he's had to reinvent himself on numerous occasions since I've known him. And even the podcasts he's done with me, they're like hidden. So you really have to navigate through a digital library to even find like Dan Winter's podcast with Jesse or me or whoever. So 1,000 episodes is wonderful to have that type of content. But the reality is it needs to be accessible and it needs to be within an hour. It needs to be within some parameter so that we can add a value. So like I said, when people watch this channel, World Impact News channel, when they get one credit for 1 hour, and there's a procedure, they actually validate that they were the person that would getting that credit. So it's not like a free for all, like you're going to get all sorts of pirates and really crazy people trying to hack and put virus in the system. It might happen, but once an act like that happens within a super intelligent AI system, man, once they make one move, it's like playing chess or playing a game like Go or any other game. You already know the outcome. That's the confidence that we have. So, there's evil stuff that's happening in our world, and these technologies that we're talking about can be utilized for good and bad, or it can be utilized for what it is, the truth of it. Doesn't have to be good or bad. Just come to terms with we don't really need we really don't need anything. And this gets back to one person. I don't. Did you see Mark Hamilton? The contact, Sean, that I sent you about Mark Hamilton.
I saw the contact but I didn't get into the link.
Okay. I forget what. Do you see that? Can you see that comment? Because I forgot the organization. I want to say something like synchronicity, or there's a name for the movement that he has. Do you see that there? It has his name, Sean. I'm not Sean. uh, anyways, Mark Hamilton, and then underneath it says it's something about like sovereignty. Do you see that?
I
It was
don't
like the
have that
last.
phone with me.
Yeah, you don't have the phone with you.
Hold
All
on, it's
right.
over here. Speaking of that, one thing I did want to ask you is if it's okay if I put your WhatsApp number underneath the podcast here while we're talking so that anybody that wants to be a part, anybody that wants to interact, or if there's any contact information that I can put, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm 100% transparent. My Facebook, like I had said to you, is wide open, and I do post a lot of very interesting comments and also, other narratives that I get from journalists, investigative reporters, fact checkers, and whatever. So, but basically, kind of in closing for today, my Facebook profile, which is the first which is obviously very important for us all. I mean, when you go in anyone's Facebook, the first thing you're going to look at is a pinned post. I mean, there's no reason to pin something if it's not like the kind of the critical thing about like what this is all about, what this person is or organization. So, I'm not going to get into it all right now, but for people listening, I go by David Ferdinand, Ferdinand, and then WE. So if you go in Facebook, there's a lot of David Ferdinands. And so, but David Ferdinand, there's only one. So it's easy to get. And I go by we. And this pin post, I'm not going to get into it all, but today is inauguration. I actually tried to run for the president of the United States. And that pin post describes the hardships that I faced and also death threats and I don't want to say assassination attempts because I was always ahead of everybody. So they didn't really have like a clear shot at me. I was not a still target. Let's put it that way. And so when it comes down to like, I don't know, like kind of strange circumstances and whatever, that pin post is just an eye opener for most people. Like I said earlier, sometimes I scare people and they say it, David, you're scaring the hell out of me, and they run in the in the highest mountains. But the nice part is once it all settles down, they're coming down from the mountains and they're going to say, you know what? You son of a bitch, you did it. You did what you said you were going to do. You did it. And so that is where that's the joy, like I said, and that's with 1 billion people. And so now with Mark Hamilton, he has I think he's reaching 100 million people. But even him, Mark Hamilton is saying that it's a 1 billion. That's and also David Meltzer. So I'm not coming up with these like numbers, just like throwing these things out. What we're trying to do is we're trying to contact these people like Mark Hamilton, with a chance that he's going to talk to us is like very low. To get these people's attention is really the gist of it. Like I said, in any salesman, you get to the door, you knock on the door. When they open it, you put your foot in between the door and the threshold. I mean, that's where, you know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? We know it's scary. It scares us. I mean, even Sean and anyone listening, Soli, tomorrow's interview with Soli, I'm sure we all admit it's scary, but on the other side of scary is just joy and blissfulness. You know, it's love, unconditional love. And in the center on the edge is awe. It's like wonder, and it's curious and whatever. You want to stay in the game. I mean, if we were always on the good side of things, why would you want to reincarnate, come back? You know, I mean, the work is done, you know, but that's where we are. That's where we are. And so Lee's going to talk a little bit about the channeling aspects. And what's interesting is the concept of cryon. And we talked about cryon and Lee Carroll. And so tomorrow I'm gonna ask Soli to mention a little bit about the coincidence of her personal relationship with this thing called cryon, and how now when I'm talking with her, when we mention something like that with a common like interest, it's so wonderful because you don't have to evaluate or measure the other person's abilities, capacity. When you mention
Mhm.
cryon, you already know that there's a
Yeah.
certain, you don't need to go into it all. But for the audience that might not know it, we're going to touch base on some of the initial surface level topics, and then when we dive deeper into it, then we can really put course material together so that we have like a 1 hour. Because like right now, I don't know if these particular episodes, we're not really focused on one. This is more right now for me. It's all about the festival on February 21st. I've been just spending the last week repairing the house. We had to put a new roof on the house. We had so many leaks and it damaged the bed, and I went through some of that with you, Sean, other episodes. But now we're repairing. The bathroom was totally in need of repair, and so basically it's like, I don't want to say plastic surgery, but when you open wounds, like I mean, all of that stuff comes at you, and so we're preparing this island to be like an eco village, a wellness center, and have these kiosks. That's the idea. Mostly local people, but maybe in your work, Sean, maybe there's international people that want to come into Latin America, which is a very difficult proposition, by the way. The devices that you have, even the EE system, to come in here, I think that it's 3 times the cost for the tariffs. Like in the customs tie it up, and then they bribe you, so you have to pay even more money just to get the thing released. And then if you have technicians that are coming from outside to actually calibrate the system, and it is a costly proposition. I went through it. I actually, I've considered a 24 unit system here, and it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad proposal, but the idea would be like what you're doing, kind of like a showroom where the spot. Like, I'm not buying the EE system. That's like a showcase. Like, people come here, they experience it for a few hours, and then when they travel all over the world, then they can tie into like Staying Alive with Mel Carmen and his place, and all of the other like 1,000 locations now that she has. That particular success story is amazing. She's an amazing woman. She's got
Yeah.
so many accolades, and like you mentioned, her mom and dad were with NASA, with engineering and in space, whatever, mathematicians. And I mean, she was around gifted. If
Yeah,
she's not
I
gifted,
think I
there's
think either her mom or her dad worked on the development of the atomic bomb. I mean, they
yeah.
were into some deep, high level projects. I mean, these were scientists at the highest level. And it's funny because mom and dad both worked in different departments, but they were both, really high end physicists. And she grew up in that whole thing. So, she obviously was around very highly intelligent people, and she's a very highly intelligent woman. But, how this all became her, and I don't know if you know Dr. Fred Bell.
It's another one. I'm saying no now. No, I don't, Sean.
Yeah, so
No.
Dr. Fred Bell was way ahead of his time. He also was sort of a contactee, if you will, but he was a really high-end scientist and physicist he lived out of Laguna Beach, and he developed a lot of like technologies. He was huge on pyramids. So when you went in his house, he had these big pyramids and like just the copper structure. And he lived, he sat underneath them. He had them all over, and he was bringing stuff out that was way ahead of his time. And Dr. Sandra Rose Michael was actually friends with him, and so then you get into these little interconnections where these people find each other, they share information, and they go off and develop it. And I just absolutely love those kinds of stories. And she's got a ton of them. I could have spent another week talking to her. Really an amazing woman, and just really a person, really honestly, that is highly compassionate and really is all about doing good in the world. That's really her whole MO is, just trying to be of service and be of benefit and be compassionate. And, I look forward to having her on here because she's the kind of person that really would fit as a good person for an hour or two. And everybody else. And I'm going to put your Facebook link underneath here. So anybody watching the podcast that wants to interact, you're always free to contact us off the channel, off the comment section. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback. And also, you can now go directly to David's Facebook page and interact there, reach David, become a guest on the show, and interact with us and make this grow to the 1.5 billion plus where it's heading. And with that, David, since we're getting close to the hour, I'll pass it off to you for a final word, and then we can call it a show.
Well, great, great. So it's happening, and we're doing it. We're doing it together in unity. It doesn't happen any other way. So uh things are coming together very quickly. Tomorrow's conversation with Soli is going to be interesting. It may actually, she might be like packing her bags and coming here to Brazil like really quick, maybe like next week, and actually be, like on site here to help with the event planning. And each day, it's amazing for me, Sean, because I don't have like a clock like most people. They have like an alarm clock or something that like they get jump out of bed and they have immediately there's so much to do. We make on average like 5,000 decisions a day, which is in the real world, like where you are in Virginia and what have you, in any like urban area. So much to do. But for me, I make like 3 decisions a day. I mean, my life is so simplified. And it's so simplified. It's really when people come here, and like I was saying, they come from all walks of life. Just yesterday, I had 2 guys from Germany, just coincidental. They're angel venture capitalists from Germany, and they invest in these new technologies for energy recharging systems for these electric cars and stuff. And so to have 2 guys, young, I think they're in their 20s, obviously they're looking for some opportunity that they can actually, grasp a hold of. And then each person that gets involved here, like even yourself, you have the ability to take, little mini clips. You can do your own like marketing. We can do it cooperatively, and we can help you, or you can actually generate your own content, just like Facebook or whatever, but with actually a more intention of like business to business, like partnerships. But
Mhm.
it's not like formal agreements. These are smart contracts that you're not going to do ever anything to hurt the other person or any evil, especially the evil. The hurting is questionable. The evil is not. When we commit evil, evil acts. It's premeditated, and it's actually like branded into whatever that timestamp is. And that's why we need to shake off these traumas in our lives that you know, we all went down past. We all did. There,
Mhm.
whether we want to admit it or not. But we, not that we need to regret those things, but we learned from it. We grew up. You had to grow up. I didn't have, like, in my case, I didn't. I mean, I had like a mom and dad, and I had a foster mother and foster father. So in my case, I actually should be considered like privileged. I had two sets of parents, actually three, because the third set was actually the state of Rhode Island. So the state of Rhode Island was my guardian, and then I had a foster care. I was in the same foster family for the whole time, 18 or 21 years. Actually, I think I extended it right to 21 because I was like not an orphan or anything. I knew my mom, but I had to experience an ending here. I know we're running on and this is kind of rambling, but so for to be intimate a little bit more about myself. And when you read that pinned post, some of this stuff is identified in there because I want to give back. I want to pay it forward and pay it back. I want to do both. And so for people that know Pay It Forward back in the 1990s, it's about helping three other people in your life, like genuinely, like seriously, like help. Like these are like crossroads that the person's like, it's in crisis, but you don't have to wait. That's the whole point. Like in healthcare, what Sean says, don't wait until you're in crisis. You can prevent that. That's the whole idea. It's the wellness. So you don't wait to these moments that you have to help three people, otherwise they're going to be homeless, jobless, and desolate, and whatever addiction. And so, um, very very exciting what's going on here. I have a, like I said, on the September 1st, I have this meeting with Victor Hugo Vaga the second, with the modern art music movement. And tomorrow, I'm mentioning that right now to prelude to tomorrow. So if anyone's listening, want to listen to tomorrow's show, Lee, I'm going to make that connection with Victor Hugo, and that's where the multimedia center, this event, I was broadcasting and actually making a documentary film, which is really what this is. The ultimate delivery is the accumulation of all that content and not editing it and then actually piecing it together into the 1.5 hours rather than like 150 hours. So we're going to condense it down to the essence of what this one event is about. And that in that, it's going to be a cinematic, like Gaia Channel, History Channel, Discovery Channel, National Geographic type of presentation with that type of interest. I don't know if we're going to charge for the viewing, or these are details that we don't need to really work out right now. But the whole thing with the festival, we're going to start marketing, and this is something that maybe we can talk about, with Lee and others, bring together cooperative marketing. Just have the date and the time, and then people can massage the message how they want, whether they're going to be here to kind of like rent a booth and be an exhibitor, or just, some type of distribution, like a physical presence, or whether it's going to be, like an hour that they would like to do a webinar, and that we can actually program these times, both in Asia and also in the East and the West. So 24/7, that's where it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be interesting if it does come together and we get actually 24 live shows for 8 days. You got a lot of content and a lot of great people. We're going to try to limit, obviously, each show to one person or one company, and actually, it's like an infomercial. It's a wish list. That's an opportunity. You get 3 wishes right now. Put the cards on the table. Define what it means in those wishes. Don't just come out and say, I want to, feed the world and solve world hunger. You got to actually like pay it forward. The philosophy of pay it forward. When you help these people, you have to already believe that you already helped them. That's the power you're transmitting. So the only way that we can really serve other people with their wishes is if they define those wishes perfectly. The more perfect they are, the more perfect we are. It's input, process, and output. So that's where we're at. Thank you so much. I know we ran over a little bit.
We're good,
Um,
man.
yeah, lots of great stuff. The inauguration's coming on. What? Actually, right now, isn't it?
Yeah,
In
I think we might
half an
have to
hour.
jump off and go check that out. But
Right.
same time, same place tomorrow. Thanks for watching the show. Get a hold of David on Facebook, and tomorrow we will have Soleil with us, and it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.